What is going on, everybody? Non here, and we're about halfway into summer. Things have calmed down quite a bit. What we've seen in Sword and Shield is everything peaked in the April-May timeframe after a big spike, and it's slowly drifted down, a couple percentage points, but it's really slowed down. Now we have recently seen an Evolving Skies increase yet again. We'll see if that lifts the rest of the Sword and Shield boxes. Um, but moving to Scarlet and Violet, everything has been in a slow march upward. Now we've had some reprints of Surging Sparks, which has pushed the price down a little bit. Journey Together sold off at release. It's starting to come back extremely strong. But what I want to do is I want to update the relative value for each one of these sets. So we've had a lot of singles sell off. So we've seen a lot of the set values decline, relatively significantly, while the box prices are increasing. So, one of the challenges that I have and that most people have market is pinpointing where is the best value for each set, or where's the best place to park money within a current set, series of sets, generation, if you will, whether it's Sword and Shield or Scarlet Violet. So this is a spreadsheet I put together back in April, and I've updated it through today. So let's go, and we'll walk backwards, and we'll talk about the price to value. And I know some people don't like this, but quite honestly, there is a direct correlation, and it's very strong, between the price of the box and the set value. If the set value is high, the price of the box is going to be high. Now, the correlation is far more weak in the other direction. So if the set value is low, the box price isn't necessarily low as well. And this is what we're seeing with Obsidian Flames, with Stellar Crown, with Sword and Shield Base, and Rebel Clash, because you have the intrinsic value of the product, which drives value, but you also have the collectability and, the supply-demand equation as a collectible, not as a product that has value inside of it, which is really unique to Pokemon as TCGs go. Is certainly not something that we see in Magic, because, unique products with no value and people just, they have no interest in. So, all right, let's look at Destin. So we've been out for a month, a little bit longer now. And box price is at $300, which is, something I've been saying all along, because the set value is over $2,000. Now, I fully expect them to push product into the market, reprint, and the set value is going to come down. The box price is probably going to come down a little bit, but I think, the floor in the set boxes for Destin Rivals, in my opinion, is probably $265, $275. It is a little bit of a step above Surging Sparks, in my opinion, especially since, with Surging Sparks, a lot of people got in well below $200. Destin Rivals, the only people that got in under $200 are folks with distributor access and who are buying from distributors. So what's going to be interesting is, generally speaking, the Pokemon Company pushes out reprints with their main set releases. So when we see Mega Evolutions 1 come out September 26th, you can be almost guaranteed that there are going to be other products that are released with it that are reprinted. It'll be interesting to see. I'm reasonably certain that Destin Rivals is going to get a reprint at that point in time, because when they're shipping to distribution, it makes a lot more sense to ship everything all at one time on, one big massive 18-wheeler times 3 or 4 or 5 or however many it takes, than it does to just randomly ship a handful of pallets, kind of as one-off. So, but for now, Destin Rivals is hard to get. The booster boxes are $300, which is something I've been saying since before release, because it's a good set. The value of the cards are in the set are obviously quite high, $2,065. So, price to value, 15%. The booster boxes are super undervalued, and part of the reason for that is there's never going to be more supply in the market than there is right now. Even if there's a reprint, it's probably going to pale in comparison to what's available right now, even though it's hard to get. And the set value is going to come down over time as reprints come out, packs get opened and ripped, we're going to see a similar dilution to what we saw with Surging Sparks, what we see with every set, what we've seen with Prismatic, which we'll get to the specialty sets here after a bit. So this 15% tells me that booster boxes are undervalued. However, I would take a wait and see approach with this one. Let's see what happens in September. It's only 2 months away, exactly two months from today. So call it 6 weeks ultimately. We'll go from there. So Journey Together, I have the booster box at 225. The enhanced booster box is right around 215. The non-enhanced is at 250. So this is a little bit of a blended average. These things have recovered extremely, extremely well since the release and a little bit of sell-off. The value of the cards in the set $600. It's not great. It's actually a little bit lower than what I had thought it would be. But I think what you're going to see consistently here is, other than Destin, the value of the cards in the set is going to be down across the board in almost every single set, based on where we're at in early June. Because even though we're in summer, things have slowed down, the boxes continue to march up. The singles are selling off because you have people that are trying to sell them, and you have far fewer people that are interested in buying them right now, just because it's summer and people's attentions are elsewhere. So Surging Sparks, the value is down to $1,100. It was $1,200 last time. My guess is this is probably about as low as it's going to go. We've just gotten our second reprint, I believe, if I'm correct on that. So I would imagine we're not going to see a bunch of Surging Sparks for a little bit here. They'll probably take their foot off the gas on this one for now. But we'll see. Stellar Crown set value $384. The singles have kind of gotten buried here. Twilight Massacre. Now, this is interesting because the singles are $967. And I know the Greninja's come down a little bit, which is probably, part of the reason. But again, the ratio of the box price to the sets is 28%, which is pretty cheap. Now, if this was rotating out in April of next year, of 2026, I would say it's extremely cheap. But since we do have a window of a full year and 9 months, it's a little bit of a risk. Temporal, $725. Paradox, $790. I was really surprised when I saw this, and I know it was a little bit higher before. Here's $1,000. It was just under $900. But this is, let's see, one, two, three, four. This is the 5th most valuable set in the in Scarlet and Violet. Which, if somebody asked me that question, I probably would have gotten that wrong. But at 210, it's super good value. Obsidian Flames, $296 for the set, just complete garbage. Paldea Evolved, $1,073. I think everybody can guess it would be the 3rd most valuable set at this point. And SV base at $492. As far as base sets go, it's decent, right? But we haven't seen we haven't seen product in a while, and it's really starting to drop. So, let's go to Sword and Shield. I'm going to do the price to value, kind of the wrap up, because I've color coded everything here. At the end, Silver Tempest, $851. This is relatively flat. I know the Lugia has hit all-time highs. I would expect that Lugia to start flying here and get closer to the Gengar and the Giratina at some point in PSA 10. I mean, right now it's $700, $800. Those two, I think, are both right around $1,500. And part of that is because there's just been so much Silver Tempest available. But what's interesting, Silver Tempest is one of the most highly ripped Sword and Shield sets out there. So it's getting shredded a lot quicker than everything else. And I think we're going to start to see that in the box prices, quite honestly. Lost Origin, $1,100. Astro Radiance at $900. This is holding up quite well for a box that's $370. Brilliant, $1,000. Fusion Strike, $1,400, $5,000 for Evolving Skies, which is actually down from $6,000 back in April, which is kind of crazy. Chilling Reign, $1,500, holding strong here. And again, we can see every one of these sets, the value of the singles has declined. Battle Styles, $658. Vivid Voltage, $429, kind of junk. Then we get to more junk. Rebel or Darkness Ablaze, the worst set in either era here. Then Rebel Clash and Sword and Shield base. This is interesting because the set value isn't really relevant because these were both pretty short printed compared to everything else. So let's work backwards. Let's take the sets that are overvalued. We'll kind of eliminate those. So Darkness Ablaze, 117% of set value. Rebel Clash, 80%. Sword and Shield base, 130%. Now, the one thing I will say is, I bought 4 boxes off Card Shop Live of Sword and Shield base back in November of last year. So it hasn't even been a year at $225. So Sword and Shield base is going to have a bunch of upside because there's just no boxes up there or out there. It's not a play on the value of the set. It's just a play on scarcity. So, it's they're not super liquid, but as far as scarcity goes, Sword and Shield base is by far the most scarce booster box in either one of these eras. So, that's something of interest. It's $600 for an entry point. Not great. You obviously have to get to $1,200 to double up, and then you have to find somebody who wants to buy it. But it's certainly interesting because that's probably going to be the box that's, quite honestly, that may actually beat Fusion Strike to $1,000 just based on rarity. Now we could see a step up in the next 2 weeks, and Fusion Strike gets to $1,000, and then I'm wrong. But Sword and Shield base has a good a shot as any, just based on the rarity of it. Rebel Clash, Darkness Ablaze, not super interested in that. Vivid, and not really. 55%. What's interesting is in this last jump, and with the singles coming down, Fusion Strike and Lost Origin are now at 50%. So 50% it's probably a little bit on the light side for where they are age-wise, but these are relatively fairly valued, to be quite honest with you. Obsidian Flames at 78%. I wouldn't touch that. Stellar Crown at 59%. These are 2 sets that are probably not going to get reprinted. Obsidian Flames is going to rotate out first, being a Charizard set. I could see that one, trading a little bit like Sword and Shield base. Obviously, it's not as rare, but you do have the box art, which is pretty badass. And it's Charizard set. So I think all bets are off there. But if I was buying product, I would be looking for something that is far more undervalued. Not looking for something specifically that people are going to buy, as collectors. I kind of want the collectability and the value. Just my personal opinion. So going to dark green, this is where we start to get into the value here. So Evolving Skies is still 45%. It's still undervalued at $2,250. Even if we change it to $2,500 at 50%, you're getting closer to where it should be. But quite honestly, the boxes should probably be $3,500 right now. Brilliant Stars and Astral at $40.41. Again, these should be at $500, if not more right now. And then the same with Silver Tempest at 44%. The box should be at $500, and they're going to get there. They're probably going to get there in September, October. As soon as summer's over, everybody refocuses on this. There's going to be some upside. So moving to the medium green here. Battle Styles, 33%. Everybody either loves Battle Styles or hates Battle Styles. But the fact of the matter is for a $215 box and a set value of $658, it is relatively good value. It just is. Now, do I like it? Do I like it more than some of the other boxes in similar relative value? I should, but I don't. It's an older set. It's a safer set. It's certainly not very sexy because it was available on Pokemon Center forever, and it has performed the worst of anything that sold off in Q4 of 2024, meaning sold out of Pokemon Center. Paldea evolved at 32%. I mean, still undervalued at $340. This is where we have to be careful. And again, I'm going to harp on the September 26th date. I'm kind of going to take a wait and see approach on a lot. I mean, I have a lot of this stuff in my inventory right now. But there is a little bit of a danger zone in September 26th around that release where we're probably going to get reprints of something. We just don't know what. So Um, some good value there. Some good value with temporal. Again, I think this is going to be the next box to $300. If for no other reason, there's just not that much out there. And I know the new Sam's Club, the Prismatic ETB, and the Pokeball has 2 Paradox and 1 Temporal pack, which is interesting because we have the Ogrepon Mask EX box that has 5 Temporal and 5 um, 5 Twilight. So there is some more Temporal coming out from a pack perspective, but certainly not from a booster box perspective. And then Journey Together at 38%. I would probably let the dust settle on this. This is one set where I have not seen the second wave come out through distro yet. In fact, I've seen almost nothing come through distro after release. And I mean, I bought a couple boxes of Destin Rivals last week, and we've been able to get a case/cases every single week since release from one distro or another. But there's been nothing for Journey. So I think they've held back that second wave. I think at some point that's coming. So, I'd be a little hesitant there. Destin, we already talked about this. Surging at 22%. It's probably getting close to being able to start accumulating cases on this. I think the downside on Surging Sparks, unless they completely change what they've done for the last year and a half and they massacre the market, which I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell they're going to do that, because it's not in their best interest, quite honestly. I think the set's proven extremely resilient from the perspective of, it'll go down to 225 for a couple days and then it bounces right back to 250. So I don't think there's a whole lot of downside there. Twilight Masquerade, 28%, good value there. Paradox, 27%, good value there. That brings me to the same set that's been lagging forever, Chilling Reign. So Chilling Reign, value of the cards in the set is $1,543. The booster boxes are $414. At 27%, this box should probably, quite honestly, I mean, the value of the cards in the set is more than Fusion Strike, and we're at 60% of the value. The Chilling Reign boxes should be $600-700, maybe $800 right now, and they're not, because there's a good amount out there. But I mean, the best buy from my perspective on this entire list is Chilling Reign booster boxes. It just is. The numbers don't lie. So, that being said, let's look at the error real quick. So Scarlet Violet is on average 1.4 years old. Sword and Shield is 4.06. Your average box price for SV is $250, which is pretty amazing at this point. And it's $589 for Sword and Shield. Obviously, Evolving Skies is a big outlier. If we make this 0, you go down to $381. So it obviously skews the average by $200. So set value on average for Sword and Shield is $848. For Scarlet Violet was $848. For Sword and Shield is $1157. So price to value, Sword and Shield is 50%. Scarlet Violet is 29.5%. And again, this 50% on average just goes to show you that the Chilling Reign booster boxes are undervalued by probably half. And it's just a matter of time. So let's look at the specialty sets very quickly here. And this is a little bit of a long-winded one, but again, I'm on vacation next week, so there's probably not going to be a whole lot of content coming from Turks and Caicos for obvious reasons. So Prismatic Evolutions, box price is $110. This is for the ETB. Obviously, the set value has taken a pretty big hit. Now, when I did this back in April, the set value was $8,000. Now it's $4,700. Now, again, back in April, in that $8,000 number, we did have a bunch of buyouts on some of the SIRs, and they were way overvalued. But the ETB to set value is 2%. Now, the booster box correlation to set value is very strong. For the ETBs, it's a little wonky just based on the fact that it's a little 9-pack mini box, if you will. So I'm still tracking these sets, and I'm trying to figure out where the real correlation is. because quite honestly, I haven't found it yet. But yeah, I think Prismatic Evolutions is extremely undervalued. And in fact, if the set value stays where it's at, the ETBs should be at $400 or $500, which is absolutely insane. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case. It's certainly not going to be there when they're dropping onesies and twosies to every schmuck with a Costco membership or a Sam's membership. And then they're turning around and selling them on TCG Player to try to make $15. Uh, so I'm guessing that we're getting close to the last hurrah of the ETBs. And then they're just going to start putting out posters and bundles and binders and the same shit that they did with 151 to keep packs coming out. But I would imagine the ETBs are getting close to being gone. In which case, we're going to start to see some of the collectability value push into here. And, I'm not going to make a price prediction by year end. But again, these are going to be $200 ETBs at some point in 2026, if not higher. Again, assuming they don't change their reprint MO, what they've been doing recently, which has been not reprinting ETBs. So Shroud of Fable up to $72, 12% set the value in the set. This is by far the best entry point of any set, other than obviously Prismatic. The odds of them reprinting ETBs is almost nothing, and it's $72. You're just a little bit above MSRP here, so you can't really go wrong. Sealed cases are, $720. These ETBs, as we get closer to next year and rotation out, they're going to push $150 at some point. And, once they break that $100 mark, they're going to get people's attention. And, people are going to want it. They're not going to want it until they do. So Paldean Fates, the best set value of the specialty sets other than Prismatic Evolutions. ETBs have run up quite a bit, 15%, but Paldean Fates is kind of my dark horse here and what I think is going to be the best performer of all the sets that are rotating out, unless we get a massive reprint, which I've heard nothing about a reprint. I know we did have some GT collectibles drops of sticker collections on Walmart the other day, but they dropped a bunch of other stuff too, so I don't think it's representative of any reprint or anything other than just dumping some inventory. 151, the singles prices have gotten wrecked because there's just been so much of this coming out. But the ETBs are $295. They're collector's items. This is what I mean about, the ETBs, once they go out of print and people are comfortable with them as collector's items, the price of the item is no longer tethered to the value of the cards in the set, similar to the Sword and Shield base booster boxes. People start buying it as collectible. So, and that's what we're seeing with 151. Crown Zenith, 189 for the ETBs, 1227. I'm actually shocked that the value of the cards in the set has held up so well. That it's super impressive as much of this is getting ripped, which means it's probably starting to dry up. Pokemon Go, 291. Celebrations, this has been a set that a lot of the YouTubers talk about as we go into the 30th anniversary, going from 133 to 240. But I mean, you're 62%, which this is a very inflated price in my view. I wouldn't touch this at this point. I think the play's over. Now, it could go up to $300 and get worse. But again, just because a trade works doesn't mean that you should do the trade. So, Shining Fates, 22%. Champion's Path, 31%. These sets are all kind of junk, quite honestly. So, average ETB price for Sword and Shield is 168. For Scarlet Violet's 168, Sword and Shield's 150. Set value, I mean, again, we're skewed a little bit by Prismatic, but even if we take that out, the set value, you throw zero in there, the quality of the four sets in Scarlet Violet are just crush everything outside of Crown Zenith. So anyway, guys, I wanted to go through this. I'll leave this up again if you guys want to pause the video, take a look at this. But it gives you some idea of where the value is to start buying into sealed product if that's something you want to do for these two eras. So anyway, guys, like the video, subscribe, join the Discord, and have a good Saturday night.